Hi folks, Puffin here. It is 8/8/21. The Olympics just ended. Just saw the ending broadcasts for the Olympics, and I wanted to say some things about the Olympics and the coverage. I've done this a little bit before, but first, before I say anything else, I want to say thank you to Japan, thank you to Tokyo, thank you to everyone involved in putting on the Olympics, thank you to all the athletes and coaches and everybody who participates in the broadcasters and everything who bring this to the world and to put it on in the first place, and all the people working at the venues and dealing with the pandemic and everything. Thank you all. Thank you. It was a great show. Especially thank you to these like special effects people and the people doing the ceremonies, the opening and closing ceremonies. The special effects were amazing. Before I forget, like the swirly light thing at the end, the globe of drones at the beginning and the swirly light thing, which I don't know how they did that at the end to make the Olympic rings. Maybe that was drones too, but it just looked like magic. Like if it was drones, it was hard to tell there was any drones involved. It looks just like magic and awesome and good job. Amazing stuff. So impressive. The sports were good too, what I could see of them. That's where I veer a little bit into criticism of the Olympics this year. As I mentioned in some of my other videos while they were going on, the over the air TV that you can see of the Olympics came across kind of like a hotel TV channel. This is not something you watch, it's something you watch to direct you to other channels. And that's what they seem to be doing a lot. Like this will tease you to tune in on this platform or to tune in on this platform that you might have to pay more for. Not a whole lot of sports over the air, or they'd be showing you heats and stuff when they maybe could have shown you a different sport, but they were showing that sport on a different platform. So it wasn't as compelling to watch, and there wasn't as much sports on constantly as I feel like there have been in previous coverage of the Olympics. I think that's probably your main reason for a decline in viewership of the over the air Olympics. And I don't know how many different metrics you're tabulating to find out how much your viewership is. But the whole nature of dividing it into streaming platforms and trying to, instead of trying to have it all in the same place over the air, I think is where you're missing out on the Olympic spirit that we're accustomed to, at least thanks to you saying broadcasters. So thanks NBC, I guess, primarily, for bringing us so much and making it something that we did all want to watch and people would take off work from when they were having to work. To watch and all see the stuff together. And it seemed like there was a lot being shown, different times of the day. People would stay up at night because it was only on TV. There weren't these other platforms to watch it on. So it's not like your fault, but I do feel like, and it's definitely not the broadcaster's fault or the people who are actually bringing it to us. But I do feel like there was some poor executive decisions made about how to divide these things up instead of just trying to show the most they could to the most people. And that's just the thing that essentially violates an Olympic spirit of trying to show the most sports and the most athletes, no matter what country they're from, the most sports and most athletes to the most people, to introduce people to new sports, to introduce people to new athletes, to give these people a time to shine, and to put it all, together. Because you see so much swimming and you feel like you've been swimming for a long time. You see too much of one thing, so I feel like they could have mixed it up. That's, my main criticism as far as that, and then the subtitles, which I've mentioned in some of my other videos. Subtitles are so bad, it's like a computer did them and it wasn't even a good computer. Like it was a Tandy. It's like bad subtitles. They're just, offensive because they don't respect what the people are saying, the announcers. And then worst of all, when they're pronouncing hard to spell or pronounce names, that just come across as complete garbled, the phonetic approximations of English words of people's names. That's offensive. They shouldn't do that. And so, especially when they have these streaming platforms, or they're not going to even show the actual event on live TV for another 12 hours or something, 8 hours, they've got plenty of time to fix that stuff if they would just pay people to read over the captions and see what it looks like. And it seems ridiculous that in that big of a production they don't have that focus as well. Also, to that note, The Rock did a great introduction of the Olympics and then a great introduction of the Special Olympics at the closing of the Olympics. The Rock had a piece on about, hey, the Special Olympics are coming up, the Paralympics, watch these games. The Olympic hosts themselves talked about how the next Olympics were going to be in 4 years and the Winter Olympics in 6 months in China. But they didn't really mention that there was going to be, and I felt like, well, thanks to The Rock for doing that, but the host of the normal Olympics, the Olympics we just saw, I should say, could have mentioned the upcoming Olympics in like a week, I think, as well. Also in Tokyo. So, and good luck for that as well. But the other thing I want to close this with is just about racism and the Olympics. There is some racism in the Olympics, which I do feel like might be one reason why people didn't watch, is to boycott the Olympics for decisions that the Olympics made about like banning the swim caps that black athletes would prefer to use. That seems racist and then sexist in these hormone limits or something that they have. Sexist and racist because it seems to apply to African athletes. So there could be some decline in viewership from people objecting to some decisions that the Olympics made. Although I think for the most part, people who want to see the athletes still want to see the athletes. I truly think the greatest decline in viewership of the Olympics is due to the platform thing and spreading things out. But I have actually heard people referring to, secondhand, I've heard people talking about how racists and Trumpers have like claimed a victory in the decline of the Olympic audience because they claim that people are not watching because they're racist and they don't. And of course, one of the great things about the Olympics is diversity. If there's one thing that the Olympics stands for, it's diversity, because it's bringing diverse countries and people from diverse people from diverse countries onto this same stage. And then people do like to celebrate when unexpected victories of countries that have never won before and things like that. Like one of the wrap up things they said was, this is how many new countries won a medal who have never won before, stuff like that. It's something that people just naturally want to celebrate. As far as people being racist and not wanting to watch the Olympics because there's more diversity or because it's a place where diversity is on display, those people didn't watch it last time either. So while these trolls and racists whose like greatest goal in life is to downvote Biden videos and brag about how they've downvoted Biden videos in comments or whatever, like to claim anything bad, that's kind of how you know they're bad people. It's like they like to claim anything bad as, oh, we did that and that's why it's good. No, it would be better if everybody watched the Olympics, everybody interested in it watched the Olympics and shared that experience, and if people weren't objecting to it because of their racism. Now, another reason people might not have watched it as much this time around is there could be a lessened appetite for sport in general. And as a nerd, as a weakling growing up, I was never into sports. And then I kind of chose as an adult to try to pay attention to some sports just to have things to talk to people about. And it's enjoyable, a thing to get into. But, they say the sports are the opiate of the masses. Like they're trying to, or religion is, and then sports is for whatever. It's to say that, these are a distraction. These are to keep people pacified. And they work to that extent until you politicize them, which I don't fault people for protest. I think it's a good thing for people to protest within sports, to use their platform to try to provoke social change. But the people who object to that because they're racist and politicize it and say, oh, we're going to refuse to watch NBA games and stuff like this, those people are ruining it and ruining the power of sport to kind of keep people occupied and pacified. So it's like, you had this good thing going, you could have gone with it, but instead, the most fascist, most authoritarian elements of our society want to like object and say, oh, we're not going to watch that anymore, or we don't like this sport. And it's like, you end up spoiling the fun of it that way. It's kind of like gambling on it spoils the fun of sport. You end up spoiling the fun of it. So don't do that. Let sport be its own thing, and let people who want to speak out, use their platform as athletes or as celebrity superstars, let them say what they have to say. I mean, it's important for people to say free speech. Remember America? So this is one of those things where they don't deserve credit, even though they'll try to take credit. And you don't want the fact that they've taken credit or people have written articles about them taking credit or whatever to amount to a historical thing. Those people didn't watch the Olympics last time. They didn't watch the Olympics this time. They're not a factor. What might be a factor is a lessening of people's desire for sport because people are changing priorities in the pandemic world. Could be. I still think the biggest factor is just you didn't show it to us in an egalitarian and massive enough amount. Like there's stuff on where you're going to want to watch this TV as much as you can, and re-show everything. You kind of saved it to try to shift us to people's platforms. Just kind of the same economic concerns that can ruin every good thing. So I feel sad that that happened, and I hope that it won't happen again in the future. But blame that when you're reviewing stuff. Don't blame diversity, or don't be afraid of what racists might do to boycott it. But also, if you don't want racist decisions to make people boycott, don't make racist decisions. Try to make good decisions that actually stick with the Olympic spirit. But thanks everybody for watching and putting it together, and thanks to all the athletes for participating. It was great to watch. What I could see of it was awesome. So thanks, and check out my song "Welcome to China" for the last Olympics.